human brains don't seem to need a feature representation. So if you take a human brain and you sort of try to open it up and look what it looks like inside, it looks kind of like that. Right, so that's what our brains look under a microscope. And if you try to zoom in further on one of these little clumps, what you'll see is individual cells. They're called neurons that look like that. So each one of these cells has a body, and those bodies are sort of the black dots that you see in the image. And then they have these little tentacles sticking out of them in various directions. So each neuron has a bunch of short little tentacles. They're called dendrites, right? And it also has one very, very long tentacle that can go very, very far. Right. Those are the ones that you sort of see as lines in that picture. And your brain really literally consists of gazillions of these things all intertwined. Now the way they work is these short little tentacles, they're called dendrites, they happen to be sensitive to certain kind of chemicals. So when there are certain kind of chemicals called neurotransmitters around the dendrites, they're sensitive to them, and they sort of take them in, and they generate chemical signals that are going into the body of the cell. Once there is a certain amount of signal, so once there is a certain amount of flow, once there's a certain amount of these chemicals around the neuron, something in the center of it gets overwhelmed and it fires. And what that means is it generates an electrical pulse, and that electrical pulse is sent down that long tentacle, which is called the axon. Right? And it's literally an electrical signal. It travels all the way to the end of that thing, and there it causes another chemical reaction. It causes those little spurts, the axon tips, to release chemicals in the area surrounding them, and those chemicals will be picked up by the dendrites of the next neuron. So you've got the system that sort of looks at how much chemicals I have around me. If that level of chemicals reaches a certain threshold, it says, I can't cope anymore, kaboom! It fires an electrical signal, and that goes somewhere in some other part of the brain, well, not very far, but relatively speaking, pretty far. And there it releases more chemicals, and another neuron might pick up on that. So the amount of chemicals that you released might overwhelm that neuron, and that might fire in turn. So you get a firing pattern where one neuron fires, then another neuron fires, and so on and so forth. So that's what it literally works like. Now, I'm not a biologist, so if any of you are, then please forgive my trampling over basic biology.